Imagine this scenario. You're sitting at home, your phone pings, you get a text message or you get an email message, and in it, it says that one of the children in your kid's preschool has been found to be positive for the coronavirus. Now you have to tell everyone in your family and everyone who's seen your kid that they might have been infected also. This is less likely to happen now where most of us are under lockdown, but this exact scenario happened to someone I know recently, and they asked me for advice about how to handle it. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips for how to tell people that you might have exposed them to the coronavirus. Hi everybody, this is Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, and lead a more fulfilling life. The world has obviously gone crazy in lots of different ways, and we're all living through experiences we never thought that we would live through. But still, there are communication challenges that we face that are connected with this whole COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. And I want to talk about one in particular, the need to possibly tell people that you've exposed them to the coronavirus. This is a specific example of a more general problem of breaking bad news to people. And the challenge of breaking bad news to people is something that I've thought a lot about and taught a lot about in the context of people who get harmed by healthcare and how doctors and nurses can break that bad news to patients and families. I think a lot of those same lessons apply here. So what I'd like to do is give you 6 tips for how you break the news to someone that you might have exposed them to coronavirus. These tips are based on a general approach to communicating bad news in healthcare that we call CANDOR. CANDOR stands for Communication and Optimal Resolution. So here are the 6 tips. Tip number 1, don't delay in telling people. What patients and families have told us about bad news is that they perceive any delay in getting the news as an additional harm. So in this case, you may have accidentally exposed someone to coronavirus. That was unintentional, but delaying in telling them so that they can take action, that's an intentional thing, and it may be perceived as another harm. So don't delay, tell them as soon as you can. Tip number 2, stick to the facts. Without blame and without too much editorializing, just give people truthful, accurate information. That's mostly what people want. They may have a lot of questions, but when you're breaking bad news like this, stick to truthful, accurate information. Tip number 3, organize the information in the following way. Say, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is what I'm going to do to fill in the gaps about what I don't know. This is a strategy taught to me by a physician colleague in Arizona who uses this when he's breaking bad news or giving complicated information to patients and families. And we've found over lots of different trainings that it works really well. So this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is what I'm going to do to find out about what I don't know. Tip number 4, and maybe this should have been earlier. You want to use this before you actually break the bad news. Give people a warning shot. Give people what we call a shot across the bow. A shot across the bow is a naval term that is before the Navy shoots at your ship and sinks you, they give you a shot across the bow to warn you, you better stop doing what you're doing or we're going to sink your ship. So a warning shot or a shot across the bow lets people know something bad is coming. So in the context of breaking bad news, a shot across the bow is some statement that lets people emotionally prepare for what might be very difficult news to process. A shot across the bow in breaking bad news is something like, I have some news that may be very difficult for you to hear, or I have to tell you something that's going to be really hard to process, or I have some painful, shocking, surprising news. Or the classic one, want to sit down. That's the classic sort of warning shot, letting people know that what they're about to hear is going to be difficult to process and letting them emotionally prepare. It doesn't mean the news isn't still going to be really hard to take, but at least they have that 1 second or a minute or two to prepare themselves to process this difficult news, and it just doesn't come completely out of the blue. Tip number 5. And this one I learned from my colleague Tim McDonald, who's also a physician who's great at breaking bad news. And he says, as I learn more, I'll share more. So when you initially break the news, there may be a bunch of questions like, how did you get it? Who did you get it from? Do they have symptoms? How long ago did you find out? What's going to happen? Is your family sick? Well, all this stuff. People are going to have lots of questions when you initially break this news that you might have exposed them. But you might not have answers to a lot of those questions. So say, look, I'll update you when I can. As I learn more, I'll share more. And finally, tip number 6. Let people know what your boundaries are. They may want to keep calling you, or they might want to call now or text you later, ask for more information, ask for how your family is doing, and so on. Let people know if they can contact you, how they can contact you, when they can contact you with more questions or concerns. So set your boundaries and let people know how you're willing to be contacted. A couple of extra bonus tips. In a situation like this, people are going to want to know about your health and your family's health. This is private information, generally speaking, and you're going to have to decide how much to share, if you share anything. Also, people are going to want medical information about this situation, and most of us are just not experts. So just remind the people who you're telling the news to, you're not a doctor, you're not an epidemiologist, and if they have medical questions or other questions about infection or contagion or anything like that, you just can't answer them. They're going to have to find answers from professionals who have that kind of expertise. You're just trying to break the news to them. And finally, if you watch this channel, you know how much I value empathy in communication. So empathize with people's fears. When you break this news to people, it's frightening. So you can say, I'm sorry to have to share the news with you. I know you were probably already anxious about this situation and maybe a little bit frightened. And this news is probably going to make things worse. And for that, I'm sorry. And you can say, we're anxious and scared too. All of that, I think, will help in empathizing with the fears of people who may have been exposed by someone in your family or in your household. I really hope that you never have to face this situation, but with hundreds of thousands of people being affected all around the world and in the United States, this may be a more and more common situation that we have to face. And even if you don't have to break bad news about exposing people to the coronavirus, there will be times in your life where you have to break bad news, and these same basic principles will apply. So I'm very concerned about you. This is an anxious time. I feel the anxiety myself. I feel the fear and the uncertainty, as I'm sure you do. It's a comfort to know there's some community here where we think about communication skills and empathy. All of these skills, I think, are critically important to us getting through this situation, especially empathically listening to and communicating with one another through these really stressful, frightening times. So I hope you're all well. I'm always grateful for your watching. If you'd like to give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We have almost 100 other videos about communication skills here on the channel. Go on over to the website, howcommunicationworks.com, and get yourself a free ebook if you give us your email address. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.